Hi everyone, I'm Chao, and today I'm excited to share our work, how university students recalibrate sense-making practices to address plausible falsehoods in LLM outputs. This is a collaboration with Shengqi, Xinyu, Jiang, Shenrong, and my advisor Rzeszotarski. As we all know, since the release of ChatGPT, over a third of university students, or even more, have been using LLMs for academic tasks. While many find these tools helpful, researchers have shown that students approach LLMs with caution. They are aware of their tendency to fabricate information, especially in topics like science and technology. They are often called hallucinations or uh, plausible falsehoods, statements that sound convincing but are not actually true. As the HCI community explores all kinds of LLM-powered learning tools, we see a growing need to understand how students interact with these outputs, especially when true and false information are mixed together. To do this, we draw on sense-making theory, which helps explain how people gather, interpret, and internalize information in complex or uncertain situations. In our work, we bring LLM use in education and human making together to examine how do university students make sense of LLM generated content and what challenges do plausible falsehoods pose, and how do students adapt their making strategies in response to these challenges. To explore these questions, we recruited 50 university students from various majors with different levels of familiarities using LLMs. They completed two think-aloud tasks followed by retrospective interviews. The tasks were designed based on three considerations. First, information gathering without a provided source likely to produce extrinsic hallucinations. And in contrast, content summarization based on a given article where intrinsic hallucinations are more common. These tasks are also differ in nature. The first usually yields a clear yes or no answer, while the second is more open-ended. This helped us observe how students approach different types of uncertainty. Our study also maps onto classic making model. The first task reflects the information forage loop, where users seek and filter contents. The second reflects the sense-making loop, where they interpret and synthesize information. Now, what did we find? Through thematic analysis, we identified a recurring sense-making process. In the first step, students use ChatGPT as a quick and intuitive information source. They either use the question directly or pasted the article into the prompt. Many use the regenerate feature to explore alternatives. And the goal was always simple, get something useful fast. Next, participants read through the generated text and pulled out potentially useful pieces of information. But at this stage, most selections were based on usefulness, not truthfulness. They gathered answers, summaries, or key points that seemed right without verifying them yet. Then they tried to deepen their understanding. This involved rereading, clarifying terms, and asking the LLM to explain unfamiliar concepts. This helped them build a mental model of the content before verifying it. Then verification. Participants checked the factuality of the information, often in two ways. First, asking the LLM to validate its own claims. Second, checking external sources like Wikipedia. Everyone did some kind of like fact checking to build a site of trusted building blocks for their final work. Once verified, students synthesize the trusted information into final product. Importantly, this wasn't always linear. Participants frequently backtracked. They reprompted ChatGPT if earlier prompts were vague or misleading. They might realize a concept needed a clarification or they needed more precise information for the final summary. Reprompting helped them refine both process and product. Now let's zoom in on some key breakdowns we observed when plausible falsehoods got in the way. First, we found that participants heavily relied on intuition to detect falsehoods. They described using the LLM as a kind of guesstimate tool, hoping it was right, but not always knowing when it wasn't. Even experienced users admitted they couldn't confidently tell when something was wrong, so they often fell back on opportunistic probing, asking the LLM to explain itself or provide examples, but still were not sure what would count as convincing evidence. Second, many participants struggled with the style of LLM responses. They were often overly long, repetitive, and confidently wrong. This made it hard to verify claims because the confident tone made them sound credible. Some users described frustrating cycles, asking a question, getting a vague answer, re-asking, and getting a slightly different answer with another apology. This yes, no loop undermined their trust and made it unclear what to believe. Finally, fact-checking outside the LLM wasn't easy either. Most users turn to search engines, but they often find online content just as unreliable. Even when we provided source material, the lack of structure in both the article and the LLM outputs made cross-checking tedious and ineffective. To address these challenges, students adapted in several ways, such as inducing inconsistencies from their responses and strategically dividing tasks between themselves and the LLM. Based on these findings, we offer 5 design applications to better support sense-making, such as tracking information changes across generations, structuring outputs for easier verification, and making uncertainty more transparent. Due to time limits, today I focused on our first research question. If you are interested in how they adapted or how we translate them into design recommendations, please check out our paper. Thank you so much for listening, and I'm happy to take any questions.